I consider myself, I'm being a little braggadocious here, but I consider myself the best shooter ever. But there's one guy that tops me. And he got underneath my skin. And the reason why he got underneath my skin is because a lot of times I couldn't understand what he was saying. And it was the late, great Dražen Petrović.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, when he came off screens and he started to talk to you, you couldn't understand him. Dražen Petrović was my nemesis. I could not stand this guy, but to this day, I respect him because I think he is the best shooter I've ever seen in my life.
Better than Ray Allen.
The best shooter I've ever seen in my life.
To quote David Stern, Dražen Petrović was an extraordinary young man and a true pioneer in the global sport of basketball. A lasting part of his athletic legacy will be that he paved the way for other international players to compete successfully in the NBA. His contributions to the sport of basketball were enormous. So yes, Dražen Petrović was a true pioneer for European basketball, as he came to the league at a time when few European players made it. But what set him apart was that he showed Europeans and Americans that overseas players could be more than just role players in the NBA. He could score from all three levels and do it well, as in his brief time in the NBA, he was one of the most efficient scorers at any position, as he was a great finisher and lights out with his shooting. He could get hot in an instant and was the ultimate competitor. And all his years spent in Europe, playing professionally at such a young age, forced him to be crafty to get the shot up over bigger defenders. So when he grew into his 6'5" frame, it seemed like any shot was a good shot for him, as he was one of the most efficient players the league had ever seen. And while he's most remembered in North America for his role on the up-and-coming early 90s Nets, and the what-if that they became after his death, that's nothing compared to his dominance of European basketball for over a decade prior to his arrival in the US. And today's episode is going to try and shine some light on the full historic career of Dražen Petrović. Let's jog your memory. Dražen Petrović was born in Šibenik in the former Yugoslavia, where he wouldn't be the first great basketball player in his family, as his older brother Aleksandar became one of the country's top point guards. But at 12 years old, Petrović was playing for his local club, BC Šibenka. He would play for 3 different selections, the cadets, the juniors, and then in 1980, at the age of 15 years old, he became a member of the Šibenka senior team, beginning his professional career. And even at this age, Petrović was recognized for his charisma, IQ, and work ethic. He had a small role his first 2 years, but after averaging about 2 points in 1981, he increased his scoring to over 16 per game in 1982, and then to 24.5 in 1983. Šibenka was a young team and weren't expected to do much, but with Petrović as one of their leaders, they made unexpected back-to-back appearances in the Korats Cup in 1982 and 1983, but would lose in the final each year. Petrović first etched his name in the history books in 1983, when at 18 years old, he would skip his prom to instead play in the Yugoslav Championship against BC Bosna, where in the final seconds, he would hit 2 free throws to give his team the lead and the championship. But this excitement would last less than a day, as the game was voided due to irregularities and ordered to be replayed at a neutral site. However, Petrović declined and his teammates followed suit, as they were stripped of the championship. Yet no members of the team ever returned their gold medals. To Petrović, when it came to basketball and competition, it didn't matter if you were family, as while he was preparing to play his brother, he left a note on the family apartment door the night before, saying his brother would not be scoring any points. Petrović would play for Šibenka until May of 1984, and would win a bronze medal with Yugoslavia at the LA Summer Olympics. Then, after serving time in the military, he would resume his career with BC Sabona, where he and his older brother would form what was considered to be the best backcourt in Europe going into the 85 season. Petrović would spend the next 4 years of his career with Sabona, where it was around this time that he would receive his nickname of the Mozart of basketball. And by adding the second Petrović brother, who would become a true superstar, Sabona would become a mecca of European basketball, with sold-out crowds and the best competition coming to play them. During the 85 season, Petrović would average over 32 points per game while being named Yugoslav Sportsman of the Year and top athlete, and he would lead Sabona to the Yugoslav League title. Then in EuroLeague play, he would average nearly 31 points per game and lead the team to the European Champions Cup, where he would score 36 points against a powerhouse Real Madrid team to secure an 87-73 win and the championship. But when most people would be celebrating and enjoying the moment, Petrović was focused on doing it again. And that's exactly what they would do in 1986. But before they got to the championship, Petrović would score 112 points in an October 5th game against Smelt Olympia, as he went 40 of 60 from the field and 10 of 20 from deep, as well as 22 of 22 from the free throw line. Unfortunately, this performance will always have an asterisk next to it, as it was literally men against boys. Olympia's coach had failed to submit necessary documentation, which left their entire senior team ineligible, so they fielded members of their junior team, with the oldest players being 17. There was a Petrović missing in 1986, but not Dražen, as Alexander would serve his mandatory military service in 1986. Nonetheless, Sabona, led by Dražen, still dominated, as they would win the Yugoslav National Cup title, with Petrović scoring 46 points versus Bosna to reach the cup final, and then following that up with 55 points versus Union Olympia to win the title, as Petrović would average over 41 points per game for the season. Petrović would have another dominant EuroLeague run en route to a second straight championship in 1986. He would average 37 points across 15 EuroLeague games this season, with Petrović putting up some incredible performances as Sabona would eventually find themselves in the championship final versus Žalgiris, a team led by another young superstar in Arvydas Sabonis. But Petrović would score 22 points as Sabona would win by 12. During the summer of 1986, the Portland Trailblazers made it evident that Petrovic's name was becoming known in the US, as they would select the European star in the third round of the '86 draft. Yet Petrović would opt to postpone his departure to the NBA for the time being. Sabona would not have the same overall success in 1987, as their only title would be the FIBA Saporta Cup, which was a second-tier level European-wide competition, with Petrović finishing as the Cup Finals top scorer, as he averaged nearly 34 points per game, and would have 28 points versus the Italian club Scavallini Pesaro in the final. 1988 saw Petrović again lead Sabona to the Yugoslav National Cup title, as he continued his scoring dominance, averaging nearly 36 points per game for the Yugoslav FFL. Petrović would find himself competing for a cup that he hadn't been trying to capture since his days with Šibenka, as the team would fight for the Korats Cup this year, which was considered a third-level club competition. Petrović would dominate in a game versus KTP Kotka, when he went for 62 points, as the team would eventually make it to the final versus Real Madrid, but would lose. Yet Petrović would still be the Cup's top scorer, averaging nearly 34 points per game. He would again suit up for the Yugoslavian national team in the summer, where they would make it all the way to the gold medal game of the Olympics, but they would lose to the USSR, who featured Arvydas Sabonis, as they would capture a silver medal, while Petrović played alongside a few more future NBA players, such as Vlade Divac, Toni Kukoc, and Dino Raja. And if you haven't seen it, check out the 30 for 30 titled Once Brothers, that documents the great friendship that Petrović and Divac once had, until the Yugoslav wars began in early 1991 and drove the two apart. But the Olympics were over, and once again, Petrović was due for a change. At just 24 years old, Petrović was already one of the greatest European players of all time, but he was wasting his talent on a Sabona team that hadn't been improving. But a team who had been extremely interested was the team who had just beat them for the Korats Cup in Real Madrid, as he had been a thorn in their side for years, even going 5-0 against them in his first 2 seasons with Sabona. Back in 1986, Real Madrid were trying to pressure Petrović into joining their club, but there were rules and regulations in place which prevented Petrović from joining the Spanish team, with the biggest obstacle being a rule which stated that a player could not play outside of Yugoslavia until the age of 28. It didn't matter how much Petrović, Sabona, or the Basketball Federation of Yugoslavia asked for, Real Madrid would pay any amount and fulfill any request without question. So in 1986, at the age of 22, Petrović had signed what was at the time the largest deal in European basketball, as he signed for 4 years and around $4 million US, making him the first $1 million contract in European basketball. However, within the contract was an agreement that he would join the team going into the '89 season. So that time had come, and he was now a member of Real Madrid. However, not many people felt that he would spend the full 4 years with the club. In just his first season with Real Madrid, Petrović became the most popular basketball player in Spain. He would play in 47 games, averaging 28.3 points per game. And after just 45 days in Madrid, he would lead the team to a victory over rival Barcelona in the Kings Cup. But the team would lose to Barcelona controversially in the Spain's championship finale, as in the series-deciding 5th game, with Real Madrid dominating, the entire starting 5 would be sent to the bench due to personal fouls, which essentially wiped out any chance they had to win. Yet Petrović would be the competition's top scorer, Madrid would also participate in the Koracs Cup, where they would take on Petrovic's former team in Cibona in the semi-final, and Cibona even held a 1-point lead late in the game. But with an opportunity to win the game by free throws in the final seconds, Petrović would ignore the Cibona fans' pleas for him to miss the shots, as he would step to the line and win the game. And then come the Koracs Cup final versus Snedero from Caserta, Real Madrid would win by 4, behind a 62-point performance from Petrović, which is considered to be his official European career high. After the season, Portland was really pushing for Petrović to join the team and finally come to the NBA. And at this point, Petrović knew there was nothing left for him to do in Europe. On top of everything that had already been mentioned, he finished his time in Europe as a 4-time Euroscar winner and 2-time Mr. Europa. And Petrović would say himself that he didn't want to remain in Europe if he could score 40 points whenever he wanted, because that's not a challenge. So he would join the Blazers going into the 1990 NBA season, as one of just a handful of European players in the league. However, by the time Petrović joined the Blazers, they were about to become one of the league's premier teams, with a well-established backcourt in Terry Porter and superstar Clyde Drexler, along with a deep front court, featuring players like Jerome Kersey, Buck Williams, Kevin Duckworth, and Clifford Robinson. But the Blazers still wanted the European star, as they bought the remaining $1.5 million of Petrovic's contract and agreed to play 2 exhibition games in Spain, pending approval of the NBA. But before the season even began, Portland got a scare, as Petrović needed back surgery due to what was thought to be a partially ruptured disc. But upon surgery, doctors discovered it was only a benign cyst pushing on a nerve, which cut his recovery time in half and had him ready for the regular season. Petrović was brought in most for his shooting ability. However, as many knew, he had an all-around scoring ability, yet would mostly just be used to stretch the floor for the Blazers. And that was if he even got real playing time, as although he would appear in 77 games this year, coach Rick Adelman would give him less than 13 minutes per game, and a lot of these minutes would often come in garbage time. Petrović didn't let this shake his confidence, as he was always prepared when he would get his chances. But he would still joke that spending so much time on the bench meant he had the best seats in the house. As a 25-year-old NBA rookie, Petrović would still hit double figures in 21 games, while recording 2 games with more than 20 points. But it was his efficiency that was most impressive, as even with the stiffer competition and deeper three-point line, Petrović still shot over 48% from the field, and his 45.9% from deep would rank 3rd in the league, and he would also shoot over 84% from the charity stripe. The Blazers would see a 20-game improvement from the year before, going 59-23 and getting a first-round matchup versus Dallas. This would be a 3-game series sweep for Portland, in which Petrović would play less than 30 minutes across the 3 games. But he would go off for 14 points in just 12 minutes of action in a Game 2 win, showing that he just needed opportunity and he would produce. Round 2 brought the Spurs, and this time, Petrović would get some legitimate playing time, as he led all non-starters with about 17.5 minutes per game. This would be a 7-game series win for Portland. Overall for the series, Petrović played well. He would have 3 games in double figures and 4 games shooting at least 50%. As for the series, he shot nearly 49%, but where he would struggle would be from beyond the arc, as he made just 1 of 7 of his attempts. But the Blazers were moving on to a conference finals matchup versus Phoenix. Petrović would receive at least 15 minutes in each of the first 3 games, but after that would receive 19 minutes combined in games 4 through 6. But with the Blazers up 3-2, Petrović would score 11 points on 5 of 7 shooting in less than 10 minutes of action, as the Blazers won, to advance to an NBA Finals matchup versus Detroit. Unfortunately, this series would end in Portland losing in 5, as Petrović had a much smaller role, appearing in 4 games and receiving more than 8 minutes just once, while scoring 10 combined points for the series. But for the regular season, Petrović averaged about 7.5 points, 1.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. Petrović would begin the 91 season still in Portland, but was barely seeing the court, receiving less than 8 minutes per game, after the team had acquired Danny Ainge in the offseason. So on November 14th, a day after receiving just 2 minutes in a blowout of Denver, their 6th straight win to start the year, Petrović demanded a trade out of Portland. But he didn't just say he wanted out. He gave the Blazers an ultimatum, saying that if he wasn't traded by the 30th of November, he would return to Yugoslavia. Petrović wouldn't get his November 30th trade, but on January 23rd, after appearing in 10 more games for the Blazers, Petrović was part of a 3-team deal, which saw him land with the New Jersey Nets, who were one of the worst teams in the league. And at the time Petrović demanded the trade, head coach Rick Adelman expressed a lack of belief in Petrović, suggesting that he wasn't as good as he thought he was, and that he would be the same player if he went somewhere else. But Petrović would show quickly that Adelman couldn't have been more wrong. Petrović would join a young Nets team who featured the first overall pick of the 1990 draft in Derek Coleman and a solid young core consisting of another former Trailblazer in Sam Bowie, a high-flying forward in Chris Morris, and a good defensive point guard in second-year Mookie Blaylock. But it seemed like Petrović was back to square one, as another veteran was occupying the shooting guard position in Reggie Theus. The Nets hadn't had much to be happy about over the past few years, and head coach Bill Fitch was already on thin ice. But one thing he would do is utilize Petrović much more, as in the 43 games he played for the team, Petrović would get over 20 minutes per game off the bench, as he would be the team's only bench scorer to average double figures. But what continued to impress even more was his efficiency, as he was a two-guard shooting the ball at a 50% clip. Although his three-point percentage did drop, it was still over 37% to lead the team. Additionally, his per 36 scoring was tops on the team as well. With New Jersey, he would hit double figures in 34 of the 43 games he played, scoring at least 22 in 5 games. But the Nets weren't able to translate this into much winning, as they went 13-30 after the trade to finish the year at 26-56 and missed the playoffs. But for the regular season, Petrović averaged about 10 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. Theus was done after 1991, meaning going into 92, Petrović finally had his opportunity to be a starter, and he ran with it. The Nets were now an up-and-coming team with Coleman and Petrović as their leaders, and had also drafted Georgia Tech standout Kenny Anderson second overall. But the star European and the reigning Rookie of the Year were the team's top performers, as together they combined for over 40 points per game, with Petrović leading the team in scoring and in three-point percentage, which makes sense for how good of a scorer and shooter that Petrović was. But what didn't make as much sense was that as a 6'5" shooting guard, his nearly 51% shooting would lead the team, as he was top 15 in the league in field goal attempts and top 10 in three-point attempts. Additionally, he would be top 20 in scoring, and his 44.4% mark from deep would be second in the league. He would hit double figures in all but 2 games, and would even record 7 games with at least 30 points, as he shot at least 50% in all 7 of these games. Anderson wouldn't get much playing time this year, as he and Fitch weren't exactly seeing eye to eye, but with the improved play of Petrović, the Nets featured an offense ranked in the top half of the league, and although they would finish the year at 40-42, this was a success, as they were sitting at 19-29 as late as February 12th, and their 40-42 record would be enough for a first-round playoff matchup versus Cleveland. But an experienced Cavs team would take the series in 4 games, yet Petrović just further showed that he was the real deal. He would start by dropping his postseason career high of 40 points on nearly 55% shooting in a Game 1 loss, then follow that up with 23 points on 10 of 15 shooting in a Game 2 loss. He would have 20 points on 50% shooting in the Nets' lone win of the series, but would then have just 14 points on 6 of 14 shooting in their Game 4 loss, as he would lead the Nets in scoring for the series. But for the regular season, Petrović averaged about 20.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. Big changes occurred going into the 93 season, as Fitch had resigned and was replaced by former Pistons coach Chuck Daly, who had just coached the US Olympic team to a gold medal in the 1992 Spain Summer Olympics. Even though the Dream Team had cruised through the Olympics, Petrović had led Croatia to a silver medal finish, as he finished with the second most total points at 187, and would average 26.7 points per game. And even though Croatia lost to the US by 32 points in the gold medal game, this was their smallest margin of victory throughout the tournament, and Croatia was the only team to hold a lead against them when they were up 25-23 about midway through the first half, and Petrović had scored a game-high 24 points in the gold medal match. But back to the NBA. Daly was in, and a few months after his hiring, Blaylock was traded to the Hawks, as Anderson was given the reins to the offense. So the Nets' new Big Three would combine to average nearly 60 points per game, as Petrović again led the team in scoring on a career-high 22.3 points per game. And he didn't just not sacrifice his efficiency in doing so, he improved it. He would shoot a career-high 51.8% from the field, which would be tops on the team among players who played more than 35 games. And he would shoot nearly 45% from deep, as well as a career-high 87% from the free throw line. He would be a top 12 scorer in the league, would finish top 20 in field goal percentage, top 10 in free throw percentage, and top 3 in three-point percentage, as he would put up double figures in all but 2 games in which he played, and would score his career high of 44 points on 17 of 23 from the field and 3 for 3 from deep in a January 24th defeat of Houston. as he would be voted third team All-NBA this season. The Nets were winning. They were 30-24 and on their way to their 31st win versus New York on February 28th. But a flagrant foul by John Starks on Kenny Anderson would result in Anderson breaking his wrist. And although it was initially thought Anderson would be back this season, he was shut down for the year in early March. But this wasn't the only thing the Nets had to worry about. In October, Petrović had made it heard that he had multiple offers to return to Europe and was seriously considering them if he didn't feel like the Nets were building a championship caliber team. However, his agent would say the chances of him returning to New Jersey for the '94 season were slim, and that the Nets could only blame themselves, as Petrović and his agent had sent a contract proposal to management over the summer, yet the Nets didn't even get back to them, which they interpreted as a confusing lack of respect. But even with this, Petrović remained focused on the task at hand. But the Nets felt the loss of Anderson, as they went 12-15 the rest of the year to finish at 43-39, which would get them a first-round rematch versus Cleveland. Petrović wouldn't have the most efficient series by his standards, but would still shoot over 45% from the field and over 33% from deep, as he would finish as the team's third leading scorer in a 5-game series loss. He would hit double figures in every game, but would only have one game with at least 20 points, when he had 21 in a Game 2 win. But his regular season would see him average about 22.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. However, no one knew it yet, but they had just seen Dražen Petrović play his final NBA game. Soon after the season, Petrović was back in Europe with the Croatian national team, as they were playing in a qualification tournament for the '93 Eurobasket. Petrović had continued to express uncertainty about returning to the Nets, and reportedly had multiple offers in place to return to Europe and play professionally. Petrović had also quickly become involved with a woman who had left her number with a Nets secretary to give to Petrović. He would call, and she would attend a Nets game as they both became interested in each other. Petrović would elect not to take a connecting flight back from Frankfurt to Croatia with the team, but instead would be picked up by the woman in Frankfurt to drive to Munich and spend the night together at a hotel. But at about 5:20 p.m. on June 7th, 1993, a country lost an icon.
A moment of silence was observed for Dražen Petrović. The Nets star was killed on Monday evening in a car accident in Germany.
In an attempt to avoid a truck who was stopped in the median after swerving to avoid a hydroplane car on a rainy Autobahn road, the car driven by Clara Salanci would try to stop in time, but it was going too fast and she lost control as the passenger side slid first into this truck. Petrović was sitting in the passenger seat and was the only one to lose his life. However, he had been sleeping at the time, and it is believed he did not feel the impact. But at just 28 years old, a man already believed by some to be the best European player ever was gone, and his death was mourned throughout Europe and the US, with some of his US peers sharing their kind words.
It was like a death in the family, because I think one thing people don't understand, they think us guys in the NBA don't get along, which is absurd. We're very close, it's like a fraternity, and it's like somebody in my family passing away.
It's a shame that he has so much to give to so many people, that he won't be here to do it.
First and foremost, a life was lost, but Dražen Petrović meant so much to European basketball. He was the player that was not only giving Europeans all over the world hope that they could make it to the world's Premier League, but that they could be stars and have success like he did. He had put together one of the most dominant European careers ever by the time he was 25, yet still came to the NBA without the respect that he seemed to have rightfully earned. But he showed that if you weren't going to give him his respect, he was going to take it. And even though he could have just been content in Portland as a European player on an NBA team, that wasn't the competitor that Petrović was. So he demanded a trade and proved himself to everybody, as even the league's elite had their troubles guarding him. He played the game with his heart on his sleeve and with no fear. He would drive into the lane and take it to the biggest guys, or pull up for threes at a time when they were still considered a bad shot. He was crafty with his dribbling and his passing, and he could get anyone to bite on his pump fake. But he did it all with poise and high IQ, as during his 4-year stretch in the NBA, he led all shooting guards in field goal and three-point percentage, even at a time with Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller in the league. His career was so short, but his impact was so large. Dražen Petrović was a star who was showing everyone that Europeans could be just as good, if not better, than their favorite player. But that's it for today's episode on the Mozart of basketball, Dražen Petrović. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. If you liked it, check out these two on the players he teamed with in New Jersey. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.